been a good number of years before I've had to speak before a crowd, and such distinguished and happy and, let's say, pleased crowd as this one. You're listening to some extraordinary stories and vignettes about what has happened to a good number of us, and I share a little of that with them. Brigadier General Jack Hammond said that he was oblivious while he was in high school, and I can't argue with that. But at one point or another in the Gulf War, he was in charge of probably all of our services at the time, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. So you have a true American hero on this premises. And he continues it day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, and the man works with intrepidity. See? He works hard. And, you know, I visited home base, his offices, and they're extraordinary, and his services are desired not only, you know, statewide, but nationally. Groups like Home Base Start Now, and perhaps the same with the same name. He does extraordinary things for people who have come home with varied injuries. This has precipitated since I was in Vietnam, and it's certainly not a great tsunami. It probably should be. It should be perhaps a great washing of emotion for the people that we've lost. They've come back with post-traumatic stress disorder, and that is one heavy burden to carry, as Tim O'Brien wrote in The Things They Carry. Post-PTSD is a burden that you carry forever. I personally don't believe it can be cured. Jack's group helps us lighten that load. It helps us carry that load as long as we can. Earth carries approximately 7 billion people. Good number of them, if you watch what we have to watch daily, undoubtedly have PTSD. It is another pandemic. It may last longer than what we've already witnessed as a pandemic. There's no vaccine for this disorder. Each and every one of you that has suffered stress yourself or in your family has found, or let's say discovered, a form of that disorder. And I like to call it a sentence, somewhat a life sentence, because we all move on in spite of what's happened to ourselves and our families, and we carry that deep in our hearts and in our psyches. PTSD's perpetual sentence has been projected on the screen of my mind for as long as I can remember, looking down on the six, actually that document is a little skewed, on the 6 North Vietnamese whom my platoon takes credit for having killed. Looking back on that, perhaps was the last day I would carry my burden lightly. It stifled me, it stunned me, and I moved on, afraid to make friends because I didn't want to see that happen to them. That kind of friendship was impossible from there on. I was hesitant to be emotional. I had this sentence on my back, and it has stayed there. The aftermath of that rapid, rapacious struggle will be in my psyche, behind my eyes. It's on the screen at the back of my skull, as long as I can carry it. Thereafter, 1 month to the day later, K33 moved up a hill entitled, or in numbered, 861. My company was assigned to clear the peak. There had been some supporting artillery, but not too much. And we slowly made it up and made it towards the peak and the tree line that was up there. As we moved forward, that entire tree line exploded in our faces. There were 97 of us. 27 were capable of walking down the next day. Fire everywhere, horrors which I probably shouldn't be mentioning now. And that was happening just to us during the time we were pinned down. We stayed there that night, and before the night settled, I did get a hold of a corpsman's bag, moved amongst the people I could help. There weren't many, and I failed. I had gone into the opposite arena of trying to save somebody in a battlefield rather than kill them. And it didn't make any difference. I helped maybe 2, and those 2, I'm not sure made it out. Fog settled in on us, woke up the next morning, still the fog gone, and it slowly burned off, and myself and 3 others were still there next to the tree line. Most people have been evacuated, but we had still at least 1 down in shock. And then within half an hour, upon finding there was 1 corporal up there badly suffering simply from shock. Not physically, but simply from shock. And we hear the word all the time, oh, I'm shocked. No, you're not. This corporal was, as I was a little earlier, a month even before, somewhat stunned, but unable to speak or walk or move. The North Vietnamese spotted us. They knew we were out there. They'd been yelling at us all night, and we got mortared. And that shock was another that he couldn't handle. The other man up there with him tried to move him, managed to pick him up and get him off of the hill. And I wasn't up there alone, I don't think, but I did find another private off to my left who had been hit by an RPG and lost his entire face and an arm. Picked him up and had to drag him down the hill because I had a couple of rifles and my own stuff, and brought him down, listening to his head bounce on the ground. Horrifying, but I carried, and I moved persistently, and I didn't run. Simply got off of that hill. That hill became the hill that protected what we now know as Quezon, place of massive siege. Went on for 66 or so days, hundreds died. Very much least those hours were better. Those last few hours were very much like what must have gone on. Places like Normandy and what I remember clearly in my youth paying a lot of attention to Iwo Jima. On Iwo Jima, 6,800 Marines died in 13 days. Can you imagine what the people at home had to bear and certainly carry in their psyches the rest of their lives? Now we are currently, I think I better hang this up. I probably am venturing far on. We're also all in need of, say, control of our minds. We're not hopefully paralyzed by media, but we do know that our futures, if to be content, if to be happy, rely on dealing with this certain pandemic, PTSD, right here at home. We see it in our schools, we see it in our colleges, we see it in supermarkets, and horribly we see it in grade schools indeed. And that's borrowed PTSD. You can see it now, and you can think you can walk away from it. And I don't think anybody here has been able to do that. We face that, and we will face it, whether we know it or not. It must become part of what we handle and take on as what we carry hereafter. Thank you. And well, I did mean to be a little heavy this morning, but we made it. And good luck to Jack. Good luck to Brigadier General Jack in dealing with exactly what he spoke of and what I just spoke of. Our military can't be left alone dealing with PTSD. It seems to be invisible, and probably all of you know it isn't. We can't live in denial. Thanks for listening.
So cute.